No. He's looking at you, kid.
Believe it or not, that beloved line from the classic film Casablanca wasn't in the original script. And believe it or not, there are plenty more examples of this. In fact, some of your all-time favorite movie moments were improvised on the spot. We've gone ahead and put together a whole list for your viewing pleasure. From classics like The Godfather to fan favorites like Dumb and Dumber, here are some of the best movie moments that weren't originally planned.
If you only knew the power of the dark side.
Hey Spanish speakers, we've got an exciting new announcement from the folks over on Screen Rant, the película, an all-Spanish channel for film theories, MCU coverage, movie news, and much more. We have videos for fans of, well, everything. So jump on over to DP's channel and let them know we sent you, in Spanish, of course. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell.
Action-adventure movies don't get much better than Steven Spielberg and George Lucas's Raiders of the Lost Ark. We're gonna go out on a limb here and call this first entry in the Indiana Jones trilogy, There Is No Fourth Film, a perfect movie. It's got everything: shootouts, car chases, humor, romance, and one of the best lines in cinema history.
I don't know, I'm making this up as I go.
It was an off-the-cuff improvisation courtesy of the brilliant Harrison Ford. And it wasn't his only unscripted contribution.
Not the man I knew 10 years ago.
It's not the years, it's the mileage.
His unscripted improvisations weren't limited to dialogue either. There's one legendary action sequence in particular that was much different in screenplay form. One of Raiders of the Lost Ark's set pieces is a chase scene in which Indy attempts to recover his main squeeze Marion from the bad guy's clutches. As he chases her through Cairo's crowded city streets, he comes across a sinister swordsman. On the actual shooting day, though, Ford and a number of the cast and crew members were suffering from terrible food poisoning and dysentery. As a result, Ford suggested to director Steven Spielberg, "Why don't I just shoot the guy?" The final result is one of the best moments not only in the Indiana Jones trilogy, but in the entire history of film. Harrison Ford's contributions weren't limited to the Indiana Jones series either. In fact, one of his finest improvisations came a year earlier in a galaxy far, far away. That's right, we're talking about one of the greatest, if not the greatest, sequels of all time, The Empire Strikes Back. The Empire Strikes Back isn't just great because it contains tons of exciting set pieces and a much-anticipated showdown between Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader. It's also not just great because it includes one of the greatest twists in cinematic history, a twist that fundamentally changed everything we know and love about Star Wars. We'd like to think the reason Empire Strikes Back is so incredible is because it has so much heart. The characters' personalities and relationships are deepened. Luke, Han, and Leia feel more human, and it makes them that much more relatable. One of the biggest examples of this is the scene in which Han is about to be frozen in carbonite. In the script, when Leia tells Han she loves him, Han's response was something along the lines of, "I love you too, and you remember that because I'll be back." Clearly, the line wasn't working for Harrison Ford and the film's director, Irvin Kershner. After numerous conversations on set, they decided to try something a little different.
I love you.
I know.
Ford went with his gut, and they came up with the now iconic exchange. Now look, we here at Screen Rant know that there have been many instances over the years where our viewers have disagreed with us. But despite our disagreements, we'd like to think that there's one particular thing we can all agree on. And that is, Dumb and Dumber is one of the funniest movies ever made. So this masterpiece of a comedy features Jim Carrey and Jeff Daniels as two dim-witted buddies named Lloyd Christmas and Harry Dunn. They're on a road trip to return a briefcase to the love of Lloyd's life. Along the way, they get caught up in all manner of hilarious shenanigans, and it is absolutely glorious. Improvisation was a regular occurrence on the set, making for a number of inspired moments that weren't in the script. One of these includes the infamous most annoying sound in the world scene. Guys! That's right, folks, this moment wasn't scripted. Take a look at Jeff Daniels' expression when Jim Carrey pops the question. Joe Mentalino, the actor between them, didn't break character either. And that's not all, folks. This brilliant exchange between Lloyd and a couple of guys outside of a 7-Eleven was also completely unscripted.
Oh, big gulps, huh? All right.
Even a movie as grim and serious as 2019's Joker can include moments of improvised inspiration. For the most part, Todd Phillips' Joker was meticulously planned out and scripted. But it quickly became clear to Phillips and the crew that if they gave lead actor Joaquin Phoenix the space to improvise, it could lead to some inspired moments. One of these moments is the scene where Arthur crawls into his refrigerator. When looking back at the experience of filming the scene, Phillips said, "We were mesmerized. I remember thinking, what is he doing? Did he just crawl in the fridge?" It was as fun and weird for us to watch it too. Another sequence that was supposed to play out much differently was the moment Arthur ends up in a public restroom after taking out those guys on the subway car. Originally, Arthur was just supposed to talk to his reflection in the mirror. Instead, Phoenix decided to perform an impromptu dance routine. The result was something far more disturbing and effective. Even the single tear that shows up on Phoenix's face in Joker's opening scene wasn't planned. And while we're on the subject of Jokers, we'd be remiss if we didn't mention Heath Ledger's legendary Oscar-winning performance in Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight. There's just something about the character that seems to bring out moments of brilliant acting inspiration. While researching the part, Nolan referred Ledger to Malcolm McDowell's iconic turn in Stanley Kubrick's A Clockwork Orange, as well as the works of painter Francis Bacon. Ledger absorbed all these influences, and the final result was an unforgettable performance. Nolan gave Ledger the space to bring little quirks and improvised moments to the table. For instance, following Jim Gordon's promotion to commissioner, the Joker sarcastically applauds. That beat wasn't in the script. The same goes for the sequence where the Joker blows up the hospital. As Ledger was walking outside, all he was supposed to do was climb onto the school bus. But due to a technical error, there was a pause in the explosion. Instead of breaking character, Ledger carried on with the shot, shrugging and mumbling and messing with the detonator. The explosion picks back up, and he carries on with the scene. It made for one of The Dark Knight's most memorable moments. Seeing as how The Godfather has a reputation for being one of the greatest films of all time, you'd think its production would have been super stiff and rigid. But when you cast an actor like Marlon Brando in one of the lead roles, you have to be willing to roll with the punches. He'd insist on having his lines of dialogue on cue cards attached to the camera so he wouldn't have to memorize anything. But Brando's peculiar quirks and demands made for some memorable moments. For instance, the cat that Vito Corleone is stroking in that opening scene, rumor has it that either Brando found it on set and decided to include it in the scene, or Coppola found it and randomly plopped it onto Brando's lap before they started shooting. Another great moment of improvisation on the Godfather set didn't come from Brando, but from actor Richard Castellano in the role of Corleone family capo Peter Clemenza. After they've taken out Paulie Gatto for his betrayal of Vito Corleone, Clemenza was only supposed to remind his henchmen to leave the gun. But Castellano recalled that Clemenza was supposed to be picking up some cannoli for his wife.
Leave the gun. Take the cannoli.
Filmmaker Stanley Kubrick was a notorious perfectionist. From Paths of Glory to 2001: A Space Odyssey, all the way to his final film, Eyes Wide Shut. It's clear Kubrick had a masterful handle on his craft and a specific vision for each product. But there was one film Kubrick made where he allowed for a looser feel and gave his actors much more room to improvise. That film was Dr. Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb. In particular, Kubrick gave noted actor and comedian Peter Sellers lots of leeway to improvise and come up with random bits to make the film even funnier. The film's final line of dialogue when Sellers' wheelchair-bound character Dr. Strangelove suddenly stands and announces he can walk was completely improvised. Another completely unintentional bit takes place in the War Room. George C. Scott's intense, energetic character General Buck Turgidson randomly trips and falls during one of his rants. Kubrick thought the moment was planned, but it was a total accident. Walter Hill's 1979 film The Warriors didn't make a huge splash when it was first released in theaters, but in the years since, it's become something of a cult classic. The film is overflowing with cinematic brilliance, from its colorful costumes to its incredible soundtrack. Even if you haven't seen the film, its visuals have probably snuck their way into your brain. The Baseball Furies, for instance? That perfect choice for a Halloween costume came from this movie. You might also be familiar with the following line.
Warriors, come out to play.
Originally, David Patrick Kelly, the actor who played the character Luther, was just supposed to clink the bottles together as a kind of taunt to coax the Warriors out to fight. He ended up improvising the line. David Patrick Kelly stated that while he brought the bottles into the scene, it was actually Hill who came up with the now infamous line. Whoever came up with it, I think we're all in agreement that it is a wonderful line to quote. While Ridley Scott's 1979 science fiction flick Alien was terrifying beyond all reason, James Cameron's 1986 sequel Aliens toned down the scares for more action-packed thrills. With Aliens, Sigourney Weaver's Ripley becomes a total action hero, and it makes for one of the most satisfying character arcs ever. One of Aliens' most beloved characters is Private Hudson. And Hudson's most famous line, believe it or not, wasn't actually in the script.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.
Gus Van Sant's superb 1997 film Good Will Hunting isn't the type of film you'd expect to include a whole lot of improvisation. But when you cast someone as brilliant and funny as Robin Williams in one of the lead roles, you have to brace yourself for what comes. While Williams' performance is mostly toned down, there is one particular scene where his masterful improvisational skills were on full display. That would be the scene in which Will's therapist Sean Maguire shares the information about his wife's uncontrollable flatulence during her sleep. In the original script, Sean's story doesn't include that at all. Sean's entire monologue as it appears in the film was improvised by Williams. And there you have it, Screen Ranters. What did you think of these improvised moments and lines? Which ones were your favorites? Are there any you love that we neglected to mention? Let us know in the comments below. And hey, you know we'd love you forever if you subscribe to our channel. It'll help you keep up with all the great content we're sending out on the daily. Until next time.